I stood outside the church dressed in navy blue, clutching the delicate invitation card that had arrived just 3 days earlier. There was no warmth in it, just a date, time, and location. No greeting, no, "We'd love to have you there, Mom." Just a name, a place, a ceremony. But I showed up anyway. I had raised this boy. I had worked double shifts while his father ran off with a yoga instructor. I had sold my engagement ring to pay for his college textbooks. And now on the most important day of his life, he hadn't even called to ask if I was coming. Still, I was there. Hair done, shoes polished, heart aching. As I stepped inside the church, everything stopped. Not for me. No. The hush that fell wasn't respect. It was discomfort. Eyes darted. Whispers crawled like insects. A woman, his fiancé's aunt, I think, grabbed the arm of another and pointed subtly. Then he appeared. My son in a tuxedo I had no hand in choosing with a haircut I didn't recognize. His smile faltered for a moment when he saw me. Then it tightened into a forced expression. "Mom," he said, walking over half-hugging me like a politician greeting a constituent. "I didn't think you'd come." I forced a smile. I wouldn't miss it. His eyes flicked sideways. Behind him, his fiancée, Lena, was glaring. She didn't even try to fake a smile. Her lips moved without sound. What is she doing here? That's when it happened. The planner, clipboard in hand, walked up to us, looking flustered. "Excuse me," she said, her voice trying to stay sweet. "There's a bit of a seating mix-up. We don't have a seat reserved for you." I blinked. "Sorry." The planner looked back and forth between me and my son, who avoided my gaze. "You're not listed in the official guest registry. The bride's family said there was limited space." I turned to my son. "You didn't save me a seat." He looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. "It's complicated, Mom. The seating chart was tight. And Lena's parents." I held up my hand. "It's fine." "No, wait." But I was already walking away. The sun was still shining outside. Birds were still chirping. The world was somehow still spinning, even though everything in me felt cracked. I got in my car. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just drove. Before I dive in, feel free to let me know where you're watching from. And if you enjoy the story, a like and subscribe would mean a lot. I drove all the way back home, a full 2-hour journey without touching the radio. My thoughts echoed louder than any song ever could. The weight of betrayal pressed on my chest like a seatbelt that wouldn't loosen. But by the time I pulled into my driveway, something in me had shifted. I wasn't just hurt. I was done. Done letting people push me aside. Done acting like the sacrifices I made didn't count. Done watching my own son prioritize everyone else over the woman who gave him everything. And I wasn't just going to let it slide. You see, what no one knew, not my son, not Lena, not the planner with her clipboard, was that I funded the entire wedding. Every flower, every chair, every catered bite, every drop of champagne. It had all come from the wedding fund I had created when he was 16. I had quietly grown it from my side business. Quietly deposited into it every holiday I skipped, every outfit I didn't buy, every dream I postponed. It had grown into a hefty amount, more than enough for a luxury wedding. But there was one clause in the agreement with the planner and vendors. I held the final sign-off, and I hadn't signed a damn thing yet. I checked my email. The event coordinator had just sent the final payment link that morning. It was still unpaid, still unapproved. I stared at the screen, then clicked decline payment. I didn't just cancel the payment, I canceled the entire wedding, and then I turned off my phone. When I woke up the next morning, there were 9 missed calls. By evening, 20. And then the front doorbell rang. The moment I opened it, my neighbor said, "You might want to come outside. The news van is here." I didn't rush to the door. I didn't panic like the old me would have. I stood there in my kitchen, kettle boiling, tea leaves steeping, while the knock came again. Firmer this time, not a frantic bang, but persistent. The kind that said, "You know who we are. You know we're not leaving." I glanced at my reflection in the kitchen window. Calm, composed, not a single crack showing. The tea was ready. I poured it into the blue porcelain cup I saved for Sundays, then finally walked to the door. Outside, parked slightly crooked across my driveway and the neighbor's lawn, was a white van with the logo of a local news station I recognized. And standing there, makeup flawless despite the sun, was their field reporter mic already in hand, eyes burning with a curiosity that could boil oceans. "M. Halbridge," she asked the moment I opened the door, camera already rolling. "Is it true you can lead your son's wedding on the day of the event?" I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I took a slow sip of my tea. "Is this live?" "No," she said quickly, though I knew better. "We're recording for our evening segment. Your daughter-in-law's cousin posted something on TikTok that's already hit 600,000 views. People are curious. It's blowing up." I looked past her to the cameraman. He gave a sheepish little wave like we were sharing a funny moment, like this wasn't my personal heartbreak turned into internet popcorn. "I won't be commenting," I said coolly, starting to shut the door. "Just one question. What made you do it?" I stopped just for a second. Then I said, "When someone tells you there's no seat at their table, sometimes the only response left is to take back the table." I didn't wait for her reaction. I closed the door, locked it, pulled the curtain. Then I laughed. Not a giggle. A full sharp echoing laugh. Because what they didn't know, what my own son didn't know, was that he hadn't just lost the wedding, he had lost the backup funds, too. The ones I'd transferred back to my own account before declining the final invoice. I walked to the bedroom, tea still in hand, and picked up my phone. 23 missed calls, 3 new voicemails. The first was from Lena. "I hope you know what you've done. My parents are humiliated. The guests flew in from 3 countries. Do you enjoy destroying your own son's life? Beep." The second voicemail was from my son. "Mom, please call me back. I didn't know she removed your name from the guest list. I didn't agree to that. I should have double-checked. Please." Beep. The third was from a number I didn't recognize. "Mrs. Halbridge, this is Arnold Croton from Silver Manna Country Club. We received a cancellation notice today regarding the Kingsley Halbridge wedding. If there's been a mistake, please call us within 24 hours, otherwise we will release the date slot." I smiled. No mistake, none at all. Let them sweat. Let them squirm in their tuxedos and rented heels. I had spent years being the one who fixed everything, who cleaned the messes, who paid quietly, gave quietly, suffered quietly. No more. I decided to go out, get some air. I threw on a long coat, pulled my hair into a twist, and walked down the block to the bakery. A young couple passed me whispering. I caught the words "wedding woman" and TikTok. My God, it really was going viral. The bakery owner, Martha, raised her eyebrows when I entered. "Didn't know you had that kind of drama in you," she said, pouring me a black coffee without asking. "You seen the clip?" "What clip?" She turned her iPad toward me. There it was, a grainy vertical video, shaky and underlit, of me walking calmly out of the church. The caption read, "This mom just walked out of her son's wedding." The reason? I didn't even recognize who filmed it. Probably one of Lena's cousins. I watched myself move on screen, calm as a goddess walking through flames. The top comment read, "Queen behavior. She built that wedding. She can burn it down." Another because imagine disrespecting the woman who paid for the whole thing. Then I need her masterclass in walking away with dignity. I laughed again. Half from disbelief, half because it actually made me feel lighter. Martha was grinning. "You know," she said, "you could write a book now." I'd read it. I waved it off, but something in me shifted. I wasn't just a mother who'd been left off the guest list. I was the story now. And this story had more chapters left. My phone buzzed again. Another call. Then another. I silenced it. But then a text popped up from Lena's mother. "We are filing a civil suit for damages and emotional distress. You'll be hearing from our lawyers." I read it, sipped my coffee, and replied simply, looking forward to it. Because if they wanted war, I wasn't just ready. I had receipts. Not just financial ones either. Real ones, screenshots, voicemails, emails, proof that the entire wedding had been bankrolled by me. Contracts in my name, deposits from my account. Lena had called me overbearing in a message I wasn't meant to see. Had bragged to her bridesmaids about how she was going to cut the cord between my son and me once they were married. She had even mocked the way I dressed at the engagement dinner, whispering behind my back, thinking I wouldn't hear. But I heard everything. I just didn't act until now. I returned home that afternoon to find 2 more voicemails and a long email from my son. It was rambling, apologetic, filled with excuses about not wanting to rock the boat and keeping peace with Lena. But at the end of it was the line that made my blood freeze. "I didn't mean to choose her over you, but I guess I did." That was it. The truth in its rawest form. Not "I'm sorry." Not "let's talk." Just a quiet passive surrender to her control. I deleted the email, then opened a folder on my desktop labeled "Final Straw." Inside it, every message, every receipt, every piece of proof I'd collected, but never used until now. I opened my lawyer's contact card, hovered over the number. Then a knock came at the door again, this time softer, familiar. I opened it, and there he was, my son. Tuck's jacket off, shirt wrinkled, tie gone, eyes swollen like he hadn't slept. "Mom," he whispered. I didn't speak. I didn't know they'd do that. I didn't know she'd erased your name. You didn't ask," I said sharply. "That's worse. Can we talk?" "Talk?" I echoed. "Now you want to talk?" After a year of distance, of dodged calls, of letting your fiancé treat me like a hired nanny who overstayed her welcome, he swallowed. "She thought you'd ruin the wedding." I blinked. "How? By existing?" He hesitated. "She said you'd make it about you?" I smiled cold. And yet, I didn't say a word. I just walked out and canceled something I built. He shifted. "We can fix this. I'll reschedule." "You won't," I said, "because you can't. That wedding was mine. The only reason it was even possible was me." "Then take the money back," he said quietly. "Let us just do it smaller on our own." I stared at him. He really didn't get it. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about me, my dignity, my place, my worth, my voice. "I won't stop you from marrying her," I said finally. "But I won't fund my own erasure." He opened his mouth to speak again, but then his phone buzzed. He looked down and his face went pale. I saw it before he turned it away. A notification. The lawsuit Lena's family had filed had just gone public. "Mom," he said, panicked. "They're going to try to destroy you." I didn't move. Then they'd better be ready for what happens next. Because what they didn't know was that I had just emailed every contract and message thread to my lawyer. And on Monday morning, she'd be filing something they weren't ready for. Something that would change their future forever. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was anxious, because I was alert, sharpened. Every hour felt like a countdown. The woman they thought they could ignore was about to become the one they'd never forget. The house was silent, but my thoughts were a storm. The lawyer, Meredith Blake, emailed at 7:03 a.m. sharp. Subject line proceeding as discussed. I opened the message and scanned the attachments. Contracts, payment logs, digital correspondence with the event vendors, and most importantly, the clause they hadn't read. Or maybe they hadn't ignored it. Anyway, the clause that stated the client, me, reserves the right to cancel all arrangements in the event of personal exclusion from the event. My lawyer had added that line after my first planning meeting with Lena and her mother when they looked at me like an old coat no one knew where to hang. Meredith wrote in her email, "Let them swing. This was your show and you chose to close the curtain. I'll see them in court." I leaned back and exhaled slowly. The power didn't feel like revenge. It felt like balance. My phone buzzed again. A message from my neighbor Janice. She'd been watching the news. "It's on Channel 6. They're calling it the wedding that vanished." I turned on the television. There I was again. Same church steps, same grainy footage, but this time the anchor was reading a full segment. They pulled photos from the engagement party. They had interviews with guests who'd flown in and arrived to find padlocked gates and no catering. And then they showed the contract excerpt, the one my lawyer had sent anonymously to the press. The camera cut to a legal expert. "This is a rare case where the bride's family overstepped a contractual agreement they clearly didn't understand. If the woman paying for the wedding is denied access, she has every right to pull the plug." The reporter nodded. So, she had legal standing. "She had the pen," the expert replied. "She always did." I turned off the television and opened my front door. A letter had been shoved through the mail slot. No stamp, just folded paper with shaky handwriting. It read, "You ruined my daughter's life. I hope you're happy." No signature, but I knew it was from Lena's mother. I dropped it in the trash without reading another line. At noon, Meredith called. Her voice was steady, clear. "Their attorney is asking for mediation. You want to meet them?" "I'll meet them," I said. "But not in private, not behind closed doors. If they want to fix this, they do it in front of everyone they tried to fool." "Public hearing?" she asked. "Public?" I said, "Make them sweat in the same silence they gave me in that church." That night, the story crossed over to national media. Headlines began circulating. Mother cancels son's wedding after being snubbed. Matriarch halts 120K ceremony after being erased from guest list. The comments kept pouring in. Some supported me, others called me petty. But the one that struck hardest was this. If she gave birth to the groom, why wasn't she seated front row? I remembered Lena's words in a text to her maid of honor. Words I only saw because she mistakenly added me to a group chat before removing me a minute later. She'd written, "We're putting his mom near the back." She's always had a way of making things about her. Not on my day. I screenshotted it. I had never said a word until now. On the morning of the mediation hearing, I wore a tailored navy suit and pearl earrings my mother left me before she died. I sat beside Meredith in the room while Lena, her mother, and their attorney sat across the table. My son wasn't there. He'd texted the night before. "I'm not strong enough to sit through this. Please understand." I did, but I also didn't. Lena spoke first. "We'd like to reach a peaceful resolution. We feel the damage has gone far beyond what was appropriate." I didn't respond. I let Meredith speak for me. "Your clients deliberately excluded my client from the wedding she funded. In doing so, they violated the terms of the service agreement. In addition, they have defamed her character across social media platforms and private text messages." Lena's mother jumped in. "We were stressed. We made mistakes, but you didn't have to humiliate us." I finally looked up. "Humiliate you? You invited 200 people to a wedding and told me, the one who raised him, that there was no seat for me?" Lena looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. Her mother whispered something to the attorney who leaned forward. "What are your client's demands?" Meredith handed him a folder. 3 things, she said. 1. A public apology read aloud by both Lena and her mother during a press event. 2. Full reimbursement of the legal fees. 3. A cease and desist agreement to prevent further slander online. The attorney's eyebrows twitched. And if we refuse, we file for damages, Meredith said, for breach of contract, defamation, and emotional distress. There was silence. Then Lena's mother sighed. Fine, she said. We'll do it. Just get this over with. The next afternoon, a press event was held at the same venue where the wedding had been scheduled. Lena stood behind a podium with a sheet of paper in her hands. Cameras flashed. Reporters gathered. She cleared her throat. I would like to publicly apologize to Margaret Hulbridge for the exclusion and disrespect shown to her in relation to the wedding between myself and her son. It was never our intention to cause her harm. We acknowledge her contribution and we regret the decisions made. Her voice cracked slightly at the end. Her mother followed with a forced smile. We recognize Mrs. Hulbridge's generosity and deeply regret any pain caused. We hope to move forward with mutual respect. I watched the broadcast from my living room, not because I needed the apology, but because the world needed to see it. I got calls afterward from people I hadn't heard from in years, coworkers, church members, even an old friend who once said I was too quiet to ever shake things up. She left a voicemail that simply said, "You shook the whole city." I almost cried. Almost, until my son showed up again. He stood on my porch, unsure. No cameras, no Lena, just him. I ended the engagement, he said softly. I didn't move. It wasn't just the wedding, he said. I kept trying to make it work, but seeing how she treated you and how I let her, I couldn't live with that. I studied him for a long time. You hurt me, I said. I know, he whispered. I don't expect forgiveness yet. I just wanted to say I'm starting over. On your own, I asked. He nodded. On my own. I let him in. I made tea. We didn't talk much, but sometimes silence says enough. The next morning, I got a call from the country club. We still have your deposit, they said. Do you want to use the venue for something else? I thought about it. Then I smiled. Yes, I do. What kind of event? I answered. A dinner for women who've ever been told there's no seat for them. As I hung up, the RSVP list in my head started forming. But I didn't get far because just as I closed my laptop, I saw a new email pop up from Lena. Subject line, I know what you did. The first sentence read, you think it's over, but I'm just getting started. And attached was a photo of me taken through my kitchen window from last night. Someone had been watching, and waiting. And I had no idea how far Lena was willing to go. The photo wasn't blurry. It was sharp, clear, too close. I stared at it, frozen. The image of myself standing in my kitchen just last night, tea in hand, silhouette against the yellow glow of the overhead lamp, and I hadn't seen anyone outside. No rustle, no car, nothing. The subject line still glared at me from the top of the email. I know what you did. Lena's name was on the sender, but the email address wasn't her personal one. It was a strange string of numbers followed by a free mail provider, a burner account. I stared at the photo again, then clicked to read the full message. You embarrassed the wrong family. We're not done. You want silence? I'll make sure the only thing people remember is how unstable you were. You're not a hero. You're just another bitter abandoned woman who wanted control. Watch your step. I already know how to get in. I don't know how long I stood there. The teacup in my hand trembled until I forced myself to set it down. My chest burned with heat. Not fear, not yet, but something colder. Something sharper. I picked up the phone and called Meredith. I just got an email, I said. A threat, a photo of me from my kitchen window. She didn't pause. Do not delete it. Forward it to me immediately. And I want you to file a police report tonight. Don't wait. But it's probably just a scare tactic. It's a line, she cut in, voice firm. And it's been crossed. I forwarded the email. She replied in less than 2 minutes with instructions and a contact at the police department. Someone she'd worked with before in civil harassment cases. Then I shut my laptop, walked into the living room, and drew every curtain, locked every window, checked the front and back doors. Still, I couldn't shake the chill that slid across my spine when I returned to the kitchen. That window, that light, that moment. How long had she been watching, and what else did she see? At the station, the officer behind the desk was already expecting me. Meredith had called ahead. I handed over the printed email and photo. They filed it under harassment and digital threat with intent to intimidate. They said they'd look into the IP address, but something about their comm made it feel like I was being reassured, not protected. As I walked back to my car, parked under a dim street light, I kept glancing over my shoulder. Nothing, just wind and shadows. Still, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I drove to my son's apartment. He answered in sweatpants, shirt wrinkled, eyes still tired. "Mom, are you okay?" I stepped inside. "I need to talk." He shut the door, concern blooming across his face. "What happened?" "She emailed me," I said, handing him the printed photo through a burner account. He stared at it for a long time. Then he sank into the couch. "She said she would," he whispered. I froze. What she always used to say, "If your mother gets in the way, I'll make sure no one ever listens to her again." She used to joke about how easy it would be to make people think you were losing your mind. He looked up, shame thick in his eyes. I didn't think she meant it. I sat down across from him. "Do you have any idea what she's planning?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, but she has people, friends with money. She used to date a guy who works in private security, someone who knows how to hide IP addresses, how to take photos without being seen." "Do you think she'd hurt me?" "No," he said quickly, then hesitated. "Not physically, but reputation, career, your name. She'd burn it all if she thought it would make her look like the victim." I let that sink in. "Not physically, but everything else." Fair game. The next morning, I woke up to find my Facebook account hacked. Profile picture changed. A post made at 3:07 a.m. It read, "I'm sorry for what I did. I ruined everything because I couldn't stand being irrelevant." The comments were already rolling in. Dozens. Some confused, some cruel. "Wow, at least she's finally admitting it. Someone tell her to log off forever." Too little, too late. I hadn't posted it, but it didn't matter. Screenshots had already spread. The damage had begun. I called Facebook, submitted a report, changed all my passwords, set up two-factor authentication on everything. It took the entire day to get my account restored, but the post was already circulating in wedding gossip groups. A few blogs picked it up. Mother admits to ruining son's wedding out of spite. It was a lie. And yet it was believable enough to grow because that's how Lena operated. Not with one huge explosion, but with little fires everywhere. Meredith brought in a digital forensics expert. He tracked the burner email to a coffee shop downtown. Public Wi-Fi, no camera footage, but the timing matched Lena's movements on her social feed. We had enough for a restraining order, but that wouldn't undo the damage. "She wants to bury me socially," I told Meredith. "To make it so even if I win legally, I lose everything else." Meredith nodded. "Then it's time you stop playing defense." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "I mean we go public, not just statements, not just contracts. We tell your story, the real story, start to finish." She leaned forward. "We make people understand who you are, why you did what you did, and why Lena is terrified of anyone hearing it." I hesitated. Going public meant exposing everything, my family, my wounds, my pride. But maybe that was the only way to take back the narrative. "Okay," I said. "I'll help you draft it," Meredith replied. "But the voice has to be yours." The article went live 2 days later. It was titled "I Paid for My Son's Wedding." Then they told me there was no seat for me. It opened with my story. Not the viral version, the real one. It detailed the sacrifices, the silence, the wedding fund I built for years, the exclusion, the humiliation, and finally the choice I made to walk away and take back everything they tried to steal. It ended with my voice. A final paragraph written in my words. I didn't cancel the wedding because I wanted to ruin their day. I canceled it because I realized they had erased me. And sometimes when people remove your seat at the table, you don't just find another chair, you build your own table, and you make damn sure everyone knows it's yours. Within hours, the article exploded. Comments poured in. You're the hero in a story they tried to twist. My mom was excluded from my wedding, too. I wish she had done this. Women like you are. Why we don't stay quiet anymore. That night, I slept without checking the locks twice. I woke up to a new email. No subject line, just a single sentence. You'll regret opening your mouth and an attachment. This time, it wasn't a photo of me. It was my son at his work, at his desk, taken through a window. I called him immediately. He answered on the first ring. She's watching me now, he said, voice low. I just got the same picture. My breath caught. She's not just trying to silence me, I whispered. She's trying to break us both. And I had no idea what she'd do next. We sat in silence for a long time. The photo of my son at work taken from outside his office window sat on the table between us. No caption, no demands, just that quiet, spine-prickling message. You'll regret opening your mouth. It wasn't subtle anymore. It was a threat. Not just to me, but to him. To both of us. She's escalating, I said quietly, staring at the image. My son leaned forward, rubbing his hands together, voice low. She used to joke about this kind of thing back when we were dating. She'd say things like, people are just pawns. You just need to know where they live, who they talk to, and you can ruin their whole world. He looked up. I thought she was just trying to sound edgy, dramatic. I nodded slowly. She wasn't. That night, we didn't sleep. We sat on my living room couch, curtains drawn, lights off, except one dim lamp by the hallway. Around 3 a.m., my son finally said, I'm done letting her win. He opened his laptop, logged into an old cloud drive he hadn't touched in months, and pulled up years of text messages, audio notes, screenshots, and video clips. You kept this? I asked. He nodded. I didn't want to believe I'd need it. We sifted through the files. A video of Lena screaming at a florist. A voicemail where she bragged about removing my name from the wedding registry. A screen recording of her sending a message to her bridesmaid saying, Margaret thinks she's so classy. Let her dress like the help. I'll have her seat moved to the corner like a forgotten side table. And then we found the most damning one. A voice memo she sent to someone named Claire. In it, Lena said, if Margaret says anything about the money, I'll leak that breakdown she had after her divorce. No one will take her seriously. Everyone has a trigger. I'll just find hers. My son looked at me. I didn't know she recorded this stuff. I think she was proud of it. I took a deep breath. She thought I was weak. I whispered. Then let's show her you're not. We sent everything to Meredith. By morning, she had filed a civil restraining order, a harassment charge, and a defamation claim. But that wasn't all. She also called in a journalist from a major network, someone who'd been watching the story since it first hit local headlines. The reporter asked to interview me on camera, and for the first time I said yes. They came to my home the next day. A small crew, one camera, one mic. I sat in the garden. The air smelled like lemon balm and rain. The reporter asked, why speak out now? I looked into the lens and said, because silence doesn't protect anyone. It only makes bullies bolder, and I've spent too long being quiet. I told my story from the beginning, raising my son alone, building a wedding fund in secret, supporting him from the shadows, and being told there was no seat for me at his biggest day. I explained why I walked away, why I cancelled everything, and why, when the backlash came, I didn't hide. The interview aired that evening on national television, and within hours, Lena's house of cards collapsed. First, the public turned on her. Thousands of comments poured into her social accounts. People reposted her bridesmaid messages, her voice memos, the screenshots of her mocking me. The hashtag started trending. Not just a mother, Chaktahan. The seat she earned, Chaktahan wedding sabotage. Then her sponsorship deals dropped her. Lena had been building a small influencer brand, bridal skincare, wedding planning tips, even a partnership with a local bridal magazine. They all vanished one by one. By midnight, she had gone private across every platform. And by morning, Meredith called. "She's been served," she said. And I asked. "She's requested a hearing to reduce damages. Her lawyer says she's lost over $300,000 in endorsements, brand contracts, and scheduled appearances." I didn't smile. Not because I wasn't satisfied, but because I didn't need to smile. This wasn't revenge. It was closure. But I wasn't done. Not yet. The next week, I received a handwritten letter in the mail. It wasn't signed, but I recognized the writing. "Lena," the note read, "you didn't win. You just exposed both of us. One day, when people forget, I'll still be younger, richer, and louder. You'll still be alone." I read it once, then I fed it into the shredder. Because that last part, it was the part she never understood. I wasn't alone. I had my son again. I had dignity, and I had something she would never have again. Respect. My son and I decided to take a small trip after everything settled. Just a few days. No press, no phones, just peace. On our final night, we sat on a quiet beach with wind in our hair and sand in our shoes. He turned to me and said, "You know what I regret most?" I shook my head. "That I didn't speak up for you sooner, that I let someone else define you for me." I put my hand over his. "You came back," I said softly. "That's what matters." We sat there until the stars came out. And for the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Not victory, not revenge, just freedom. A month later, I hosted a dinner. Not just any dinner, a gathering for women who had been silenced, excluded, overlooked. Some were mothers, some were daughters, some had cancelled weddings, some had walked out of courtrooms, some had rebuilt their lives from scratch. We called it the other table. I gave a small speech at the end. Sometimes they say there's no seat for us, that we're too loud, too much, too complicated, too honest, too emotional. But we still show up. And when we're not invited, we build the whole table ourselves. The women stood and clapped. Some cried. It was quiet, powerful, and perfect. And right then, I knew this wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning of a new one. One I wrote for myself. One where no one could move my name off a list again. One where the seat I held was made of stone and no one would dare take it from